Good evening, everyone. Anyone is welcome to record this meeting, provided they do not disturb the conduct of the meeting. More information is available in the agenda. I would like to remind everyone present that this meeting is being filmed and made available to view in live and archive form via the Council's website. If you're seated in the public gallery, it is possible that the cameras may capture your image. If you wish to avoid being filmed, it is recommended you make a member of staff aware and they will direct you where to sit. The West Gate garden gates are locked after sunset, and members of the public should leave the Guildhall by the side exit behind the glass door. Should the fire alarm sound, please leave through the nearest safe exit. The assembly point will be in the Tower House car park. I would like to welcome Councillor Peter Campbell to his first council meeting following last week's by-election. Welcome. Do we have any apologies?
We have apologies from Councillors Bothwell, Old, Soul, Ian Stockley, Jeanette Stockley and Watkins. And Councillor Jones.
Thank you. Are there any declarations of interest for this meeting? Go ahead, Councillor Brady.
I probably don't need to say it, but I sit at KCC, the LGR and Devolution Cabinet Committee, for better or worse.
Any other declarations? Thank you. Councillors, the purpose of tonight's debate is to establish which is Council's preferred option. That will then be submitted to Cabinet as a recommendation. This is not a binding decision. Cabinet will make the final determination immediately after this meeting. I will now hand over to the Joint Chief Executive to explain how the debate and the voting will be managed tonight.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. The purpose of the meeting is to establish Council's preferred option, which will then be recommended to Cabinet. If no option is selected, Cabinet will note that in its deliberations before making a decision. Tonight's meeting will work in the following way. I will introduce the report. Then the Lord Mayor will invite the leader to open the debate. That will provide an opportunity for the leader to make any proposals he may wish to make in relation to the options set out in the report. Once a proposal has been made, the Chair will seek a seconder and invite debate. Each of you will be able to speak once to each proposal in the usual way. The business cases and options contained in the report are being considered by all councils in Kent for a decision on their preference. They cannot be amended or added to at this stage. At the end of the debate, there will be at least one proposal and vote. If a proposal is supported by a majority of those voting, it will be carried and no further votes will be taken. That will be the final recommendation of Council to Cabinet. If a proposal is lost, then the councillors will be invited to propose and vote on the next option in the report. In the event that no proposal is carried, then what will be recorded, that will be recorded and the meeting closed. Cabinet will then convene, hear representations from any members of the public and make their final decision. Are there any questions on the voting arrangements or the structure of the debate before we start?
Thank you, Peter. Given the significance of this report, I would like to propose the suspension of the Procedure Rule 11.41, which permits each speaker 3 minutes to make their points, and propose the period be extended to 5 minutes per speech for this meeting only. Do I have a seconder, please? Thank you. Can we have a recorded vote? Change of plans. We're going to vote by show of hands just for this one. Just for this one. Thank you. Thank you. That's carried. I would like to invite the Joint Chief Executive to introduce the report.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Tonight, Council is considering the 5 options set out in this report and the Cabinet Agenda Pack to select a recommended option for consideration by Cabinet later this evening. The 5 options have all been developed using a shared data set worked up between the 14 councils and our strategic partner, KPMG. Through establishing the options you have before you tonight, leaders from the 14 councils considered a long list of 9 options and gave a steer that 2 options were the preferred choice of the majority of councils, and they should be developed as business cases using the government's funding allocation, as set out in the report. These are options 3A and 4B. You can find the details of the summary of these within your papers, as well as details within the Cabinet appendices. Following discussions by individual councils, KPMG were further commissioned by KCC to develop the business case for 1A, although largely led by KCC officers in content, style and formatting, 4D by Medway Council, and 5A by Gravesham and Dartford councils. As you'll note from both this report and the Cabinet report, there is no officer recommendation. Work by KPMG suggests that all options are viable and can, to a greater or lesser extent, deliver on the 6 criteria set out by MHCLG. I'd like in particular to draw your attention to the financial information set out in each of the business cases. It's important to understand, and the Section 151 officer comments reflect this, that these are not budgets, targets or binding financial assumptions for any new authority. They're merely there to establish a comparative data set that can be used to compare each option like for like. The view of the Section 151 officers across Kent and ours as well, is that LGR will not in itself resolve the structural financial issues of local government, but will provide the opportunity for more efficient and effective delivery. On that basis, all options are viable financially, although it will be for the new authority to set and deliver its own medium-term financial strategies through the new shadow authorities. I appreciate there is a wealth of information contained within the reports and would be happy to take any questions on any detail. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. I'd like to invite the leader to open the debate.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Sorry about that. Okay. It's a bit different tonight, and I take a little bit of indulgence. Thank you, Lord Mayor, in taking a few moments to address council and put a perspective on it that I've developed over a period of time with other Kent leaders, sharing our difficulties, experience, and so on. And with the officer team as well. So it seems almost unbelievable that Canterbury City Council is already almost a year into a period of transition from a district council to becoming a partner in the new unitary authority. Let's remember, the commitment to improve local government was clear in the Labour manifesto that won them power in 2024. That commitment saw change in the first few weeks of the new government. A change in the relationship between local government and central government, from us being the old enemy under the Conservatives to a valued and trusted partner. And to me, that was a huge and noticeable change. That commitment was turbocharged in December 24 with the publication of the English Devolution White Paper, and has evolved from that point into the English Devolution and Community Engagement Bill. Unashamedly, that bill sought to facilitate the change needed, recognising that local government has been hollowed out and was broken beyond the repair in its current form. No amount of money could fix it now, and reorganisation was essential. The direction of change was set. Two-tier systems will be replaced by unitary authorities and mayoral strategic oversight. So, let's be clear. Kent will have a local government reorganisation and unitary authorities will be created with devolved powers through an elected mayor. Kent Council is united in seeking a fast track to that change to a unitary authority and wanted to join the priority devolution programme in 2024. That approach was regrettably rejected. The new government demanding local government reorganisation in Kent was addressed before any other part of the devolution process. That government demand has been an enormous and challenging task over the past year. That's probably going to award me the most understatement of the year award by the officers, I think, would be quite a fair point there. The work of all Kent councils working collaboratively and supported by Kent leaders of all political parties has allowed the direction to be set and the unitary options created that are viable and deliverable. Those are the ones you see tonight. It will be for the Secretary of State for local government to decide which option will be the basis of local government reform for Kent. Tonight we decide our preferred model of unitary geography to underpin the devolved powers of an elected mayor in the years to come. We will share our choice with the Secretary of State in a formal manner. Those unitary options, according to government guidance, which was mentioned earlier by Chief Exec, should be able to facilitate the creation of an overarching strategic mayoral authority and ultimately be able to deliver the change needed to ensure public services is better delivered for our residents over future generations to come. This mayoral oversight, devolution as it's called, comes with independence and self-determination through the mayor's delegated powers. It is a prize that we must have as an authority going forward. This administration, along with every district council in Kent, is united in calling for devolution, the mayor, at the same time as local government reorganisation, the whole package in the shortest possible time. So, firstly, we need to create space, finance and resources to drive service improvements. And that's what this is all about. For me, it's an overwhelming reason for any change. The ongoing savings from efficiencies and integrated services can be used in improving our lives through improved services. The cost of creating change is affordable within existing budgets using reserves and capital receipts. That's what our finance officers tell us. That's what your reports tell you. Very much the invest to save model utilised by this council and others over many, many years. All financial officers see long-term benefits in operating as a unitary authority. I'm confident and enthusiastic about the future. This is the start of a new and in many, many new opportunities as well. Our decision tonight is important. It's a historic marker along the transition pathway. We are firmly wedded to moving step by step along that path towards transformed local government in Kent and the devolution powers by the mayor. It's been 50 years since the last radical shake-up of local government. We should not fear change nor underestimate the task ahead. This is a huge undertaking and it should be grasped as a once-in-a-generation opportunity to rethink and reset the core purpose of local government to be fit for the challenge of the 21st century. We must be working differently, working smarter, focusing on early intervention and be targeted in supporting our residents and neighbours through difficult times. Providing joined up care that covers everything from housing needs, support back to work, mental health, wellness, medical care, and addressing the struggles with SEND and children's education for many families and general education anyway. There's also so much more that local authorities do. We should seize this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to create a very different unitary authority where we walk together through one door to seek help with life's challenges, reassured that public services we need will be there for us on the other side. take a moment now, change tack slightly, to publicly thank officers, and most especially the Joint Chief Executive, Susie Wakeham and Peter Davis. They've both shown cool heads and a strong leadership that's required in times like this. They will continue to do so, and with our support and our confidence, we will tread that path on that transitional journey. Reorganisation of any sort in local government is disruptive and unsettling for staff at every level in our organisation. We understand that. We are completely clear that our staff are the most valuable and irreplaceable asset we have. We're proud to hold that view. We never doubt that view. So, for our trainees and new recruits, to the heads of service and chief execs, they're part of the Canterbury City Council team that will create our part of a new unitary authority. They are embedded in the process. Their valuable skills and their knowledge are critical today and every day in creating this new unitary authority, the one we strive for in the future. So, in summary and to finish, whatever the Secretary of State will choose, whichever model, we will be implementing that model and we will get behind it and we will make it work. Residents expect us to deliver, and we will. We will do what we do to shape the future of a generation, or probably generations actually. I'm forever mindful of that responsibility. But we should share and embrace the changes ahead. We will share the ups and the downs, every single one of us. We can already feel proud of what we've done and what we will achieve in the months to come. And we can create a new generation's resilience of strong local government. So strong, unified local government must always strive to deliver the best for our residents, wherever they live in their new unitary authority, rethinking opportunity and challenges as we serve our residents, who walk together through that one door to seek help with life's challenges. Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to invite the leader to make a proposal before we open up for debate.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Just to reflect, my impressions have spoken to many people, many councillors here and other people involved in our groups and unities over the course of the last few weeks, certainly. And the vast majority people support options for either 3 or 4 unitary authorities in Kent. I would therefore like to formally propose that we reject options 1 and 5 now. That's a lucky escape for people, isn't it? Just do that last bit again. I would therefore like to formally propose that we reject options 1 and 5 and then move to debate on the remaining options 3A, 4B and 4D, which are the ones that seem to have levels of support through all of us, to be voted on in order as listed in the report, etc. So a vote for this, and I'll seek a seconder, if I may.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Alex. A vote for this would be to reject before debate items 1 and 5. Thank you.
Thank you. We're open for debate now. Okay, we'll move to a vote.
And it's going to be a roll call, I'm afraid. It is. So you're voting for, against or abstain, please. Councillor Baldock.
For.
Councillor Bland.
For.
Councillor Brady,
4.
Councillor Buckman, 4. Councillor Butcher,
4.
Councillor Campbell, 4. Councillor Carnack,
4.
Councillor Castle,
4.
Councillor Chris Cornell,
4.
Councillor Charlotte Cornell, 4. Councillor Dawkins,
4.
Councillor Dixie, Councillor Edwards,
4.
Councillor Forrester,
4.
Councillor Flanagan,
4.
Councillor Andrew Harvey, Councillor Liz Harvey,
4.
Councillor Hazelton,
4.
Councillor Heaver,
4.
Councillor Dupe,
4.
Councillor Mackenzie,
4.
Councillor Mellish,
4.
Councillor Moses,
4.
Councillor Nolan,
4.
Councillor Paget, 4. Councillor Prentice,
4.
Councillor Ricketts,
4.
Councillor Dan Smith,
4.
Councillor Naomi Smith, Councillor Thomas,
Four, please.
Councillor Turnbull, and Councillor Worley.
4.
And that's carried 32-4. Thank you.
Thank you. I would now like to invite the leader to make a second proposal before we open up for debate.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'd like to propose that we move to debate on the remaining options 3A, 4B and 4D, and then vote on each in order listed in the report. So it'd be 3A first, 4B and 4D in the report. Do I have a seconder, please?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Would the seconder like to speak now or reserve the right to speak later?
I'll reserve my right, please, Lord Mayor. Thank you.
I would now like to open up the debate.
Lord Mayor, I think it is tricky. I think what would be really handy, I think, for people that may be here that are not quite so decided, is that if anyone has strong views about why it's a good thing or a bad thing, and that their particular choice, and that would be really helpful to get the debate started. Thank you, Rachel.
Councillor Ricketts and then Councillor Carnack.
I was going to go up front rather than reserving my right. But would you like to go first, Rachel? Go on.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I've always been a great supporter of devolution in Kent. What could be better than less government delivering more joined-up decision-making, efficient services at lower costs and fewer councillors? Being able to join the dots across the care services provided by KCC and the housing services provided by district borough councils should be a game changer and really start to make a difference to our communities. There are so many opportunities to raise the well-being of our East Kent residents and start to improve economic, health and educational outcomes. That local decisions are made locally by the people who know where they live best, and that an elected mayor is making sure that economic growth, transport integration and policing are prioritised across the county. But as we vote tonight, some key parts of the process are still missing. We need full devolution, and I will work with other group leaders, I've already spoken this evening about this, to send a strong message to our MPs and government that we need assurance of a date when the elected Kent Mayor will be in post, and I know the leader mentioned this in his opening speech as well. I will also not apologise for banging on that in Canterbury we must start a community governance review. We will rue the day we let a partially parish district, and don't try saying that after a couple of pints, with no local representation in our city, towns and several rural areas into the new unitary. For me, there is only one proposal that we should be considering in Canterbury, 3A. For those of us that have been involved in the budget setting process in this council, we know the prudent financial decisions that have to be made to keep councils running, to keep services delivered. And all of us know the financial difficulties that KCC finds itself in and the enduring pressures of providing adult social care. We must be mindful that once the unitary is formed, those pressures will be our pressures. And East Kent Unitary, and particularly the option 4B and 4D, will concentrate the poorest borough district authorities with the least council tax income per household and with the highest adult and children's social services costs and the highest SEND transport demand per household together. We have to ensure the new unitary will be financially sustainable. The Section 151 officers sum it up in the report. While being fully supportive of the long-term benefits of LGR, all Kent Finance officers agree LGR does not in itself provide a viable solution to the scale of the financial challenge faced, and that's on page 11 of our report tonight. That is why none of the 4 unitary models work for us. They are unsustainable. Likewise, which we've dumped, the one unitary model is too unwieldy. I back 3A along with my group. As KPMG said in its report, it has strong alignment with transport networks and key public service geographies. It's the most efficient and sustainable option with balanced populations, lower transition costs and minimal disruption to existing boundaries. It allows the councils to have the scale and capacity to deliver collaborative, transformative and lasting public service reform. It maintains local identity and provides the strong foundations for devolution and community-based governance across Kent. East Kent would be a diverse coastal and rural economy with major ports, including hopefully Ashford again, offering vital connections to Europe, anchored by education hubs, particularly here in Canterbury, and a strong tourism offering. It would be a gateway to Europe and into the UK. I ask my fellow councillors to please back option 3A. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Carnac. Councillor Jip.
I am going to say that I'm going on gut instinct on mine. I've done a lot of canvassing on this. I've asked a lot of people what they think. It's really mixed because not a lot of people have been too engaged because, let's face it, it's a long way away for people who aren't going to be directly affected. None of our jobs are going to be here in 2 years. None of us. I mean, there'll always be those jobs going, but it will not necessarily be all of us. We're the ones that have to think about it immediately because we're voting on it. Whereas the public that I'm talking to, it's not really something that's going to make a difference day to day. Mainly that's possibly the people that I speak to. But having grown up in Faversham and living in Canterbury, I can feel the links. Having grown up there, as I've said before, at the very start of this process, Canterbury was where we went. And there's historic links along the Pilgrim's Way. It can't all be about money. So after speaking with people and gauging their views on this, I'm going to go with 4D. There's other reasons, obviously, for not wanting the 3 unitary model. I think one of my colleagues, Dan Smith, actually came up with a really good reason yesterday at the briefing. Thank you for that, by the way. In that the population growth is going to make a 3 unitary unmanageable, especially in sort of Ashford, where there is building literally across the district because there's so much space. So that very quickly is going to put in a couple of 100,000. You know, it's just not going to work in terms of representation. So yeah, that's my rambling reason for 4D, and it's basically gut instinct.
Thank you very much. Councillor Heaver.
Thank you very much, Lord Mayor. I just wanted to make two sort of macro points to contribute to this debate, and then one specific one about the ward I represent. The macro points are that, very briefly, as a Green, I don't think this is devolution. It's exactly the opposite. It's moving decision-making away from people, not towards them. But I'll leave that aside because I realise this council has a statutory obligation to put forward a option to government. I also would like to just air a little bit of discomfort between the amount of time, resources. I think this is my 7th formal or informal meeting about LGR. As a new councillor, I've had more time devoted to this than any other pressing issue in the district or the county, and it's completely disproportionate to the level of interest or enthusiasm from the residents we represent. I think the official number of responses was 153 out of this whole district, which is some sort of indication of just the level of apathy and uninterest of just about everyone we represent. And I just wanted to remind myself, as much as anything else, that this may be of enormous interest to us, but it's not of a great interest to anybody outside this chamber. My specific point, if you can indulge me, is to do with picking up on Councillor Carnack's point about the democratic deficit, because whichever option we choose or elect or vote for tonight, there's one gaping huge democratic flaw in all of them, and that's because this unitary will have a centralised ability to plan infrastructure, housing, waste treatment, quarries across the entire of the East Kent unitary. And there's also, given the current political climate, at least a reasonable chance that that East Kent unitary could be run by a party that isn't represented in this chamber at the moment at all. And that really worries me individually, having seen this particular group in action, as I know some of my colleagues have. And my practical point is simply this: if that unitary authority decides that it would be a great idea to build a 16-storey hotel in, for example, Whitstable Harbour, and there is no town council in Whitstable to resist that, to be a focal point for resistance, to lobby perhaps even for funding for that town, it leaves those residents and that community in a very, very vulnerable position indeed, in my opinion. And for that reason, I won't be able to support any of these options, because there's a significant risk, in my view, it's throwing the residents, not just of Whitstable, but of all the other unrepresented towns, including the city of Canterbury, under a bus. And I'm not prepared to do that.
Councillor Nolan.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. There's a few things that flying around the ether at the moment. 153 responses. Of those 150 responses, of course, we had residents' associations who represent a great number of people. So I would dispute that there is apathy. I can certainly say, from my point of view, and it's no reflection on who speaks to whomever, but I do find that residents are very interested in the fact that Canterbury City Council will be responsible for certain things, but when they want something done, and I mentioned the Biggleston streetlights here, they have to petition both Canterbury City Council and Kent County Council. So I do question, I think when people understand what actually the powers are, they are very interested, and they do want, as Councillor Carnack has said, they do want a unified authority that's going to deliver better services. So I think the important thing for us to focus on is not whether we think 150 responses are apathy. I certainly don't, because I know those organisations that responded, and they are very, some of them are represented here this evening, and they are very vocal and articulate. Do the people of Canterbury or the people of Whitstable think they're going to be downtrodden? Well, for goodness sake, I've known them for some time now, and I would say that they certainly aren't going to be downtrodden or whatever. I think we need to put certain sort of canards to rest. People are interested in a council that will deliver joined up and proper services to them. they are interested in those things. And I think what we ought to concentrate on, and I agree with Councillor Carnac in this, is what is the best system that we can recommend. And we are only one of, 14 councils? You know, we are not the decision maker, but we have to make decisions. And therefore tonight it's about the known facts, not what we think or whatever, but the actual known facts as to whether we go for 3A, 4B or 4D. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Dan Smith.
Thank you very much. I think one of the issues that will come up, it came quite low down when the surveys were done, but I think it's perhaps more important than people gave it credit to, is actually the representation of councillor to population. Currently, I think Canterbury has probably the highest ratio of any of the districts. I think it's about 1 to 4,000. The councillor to population at the moment, and for me that is something that is actually, with the increased powers that and need to talk about the various issues that each council will gain, is something that we need to keep at least to that ratio or in the proximity of it. And some of the other options are increasing that ratio higher or lower, and population growth and things will change them. So I think the one for me which stands out is actually 4D, because it's closest, I think, in population ratio to Canterbury's, and I think as has worked. It's sometimes a bit of a struggle, but it works. And with increased powers, I think those one councillor representing those 4,000 odd people will have more responsibility, more issues to deal with, more need to actually work hard for that area across a broader range. And if you increase that population too greatly, then you begin to lose democracy at the first step. I think also the issue of the parishes and the unparished areas is something that's going to crop up, not just in the unparished bits at the moment, like Canterbury and Whitstable, but also in the smaller rural parishes where their views are likely to be squished into non-existence. And I think that's something that you need to also take into consideration, that they are probably the closest people that the new council, whatever shape it takes, will have to the local population, and losing that connection is not going to be great for democracy. Yeah. I think of the options that were given, 4D for me stands out as closest to the reality. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can I invite Councillor Chris Connell to speak?
I don't know how long it took most people, but 11,500 pages. By the time I got to about 2,000, I gave up trying to decide what the Secretary of State was going to decide. In fact, I kind of gave up on the concept of trying to come up with something which the Secretary of State would want, because I thought that the main purpose of what I'm here tonight is to kind of represent what my residents think, and we'll put that forward kind of honestly and clearly, and leave it for the powers that be to kind of discuss. I agree with your point, Rachel, that I think that kind of joining the dots is really important. And I think that people do care about the benefits that can come from local government reorganisation, that you can decide where you're going to plan to put houses and also agree to put the schools there and the roads there and your healthcare services. And I think that's the type of joined up thinking which people really care about. But I do similarly agree with Stuart's point about apathy, because I think this process is kind of long and arduous for lots of people. But my kind of process for going through this is to say, what do I think most people, when I talk about this issue, really care about? And whilst they don't care about the process, so to speak, they do care about knowing their councillor and being able to pick up the phone and have a kind of conversation with them. It's that immediacy. I'm not entirely wedded to 1 to 3,800, so to speak. I can see very engaged county councillors who are able to represent larger geographies, particularly when you're given additional time and resource to be able to do that. But I can't with full conscience vote for a model which sees that ratio stretched as much as I think a three-form model does. I think effectively, if you look at the examples that it had at the time, the three model is the second highest or the highest effectively of the models, the other authorities identified. And I do think that population growth is effectively going to create a problem. Then if you look at the four models and you work out that each of the four models, basically by the time that a local plan period is through, we're going to get to that 500,000 threshold, which effectively the government is looking for. I kind of start looking at the two of them side by side. So for me, the kind of switching costs that I considered for both are relatively half and half. The council tax is the same, the payment periods are broadly similar, even the financing ratio, which is key for any of these authorities going forward. But for me, what really stretches it in the end, and my support is for 4D, is effectively kind of three things which I think are kind of consistent in looking at the information. The first of which I think 4D has a clearer sense of identity. I think that Faversham does feel like something we have a clear kind of travel to work area on. But I can see 4D as also having a really clear offer in terms of a kind of coastal tourism offer and a real range of different coastal tourist offers. It will have a strength in innovation and education with Sandwich and the Innovation Centre there, which won't see Canterbury lost. And as chair of the Harbour Board, what I also see is a range of different maritime experience. So we won't be dominated by just having the Port of Dover, which is a massive commercial operation, including things like Faversham and Folkestone Marina, etc. Give us quite a range. The second, as I've said, is that importance of representation, and it has the lowest ratio of councillors to representation amongst the four. But for me, the key decision is that I feel that 4B bakes in the inequality which we all know already exists within Kent. We all know that East and West Kent are hugely different. And the variety in 4B in terms of population size, in 4B, West Kent is 140,000 people more than East Kent. And as a result, it has a gross value added twice of what East Kent is effectively going to be. It's got its value in business rates take in West Kent is 114 million, in East Kent it's 67. Okay, it's effectively setting that's up to fail. I feel effectively this is a bit like a divorce, as in we have to think about who, that when we leave, we need to give everyone the opportunity to effectively move on consistently. And so for me, what is really important in 4D is the populations are similar, the business take rate is better, and I believe it puts all parties on an opportunity for success.
Thank you very much. Councillor Dawkins?
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so I just want to speak briefly in favour of unitaries because I know there's been a couple of people who are not so in favour. So just to distill some of those arguments, because to me, the unitaries bring things closer to home. And as a KCC councillor, as well, I've been one, not one now. I have been one for my sins. I've seen both sides of the fence. And currently, at the moment, KCC, many of the decisions are made far away from where they actually are. So, you could have someone in Tunbridge Wells making a decision about a health centre in Folkestone. So that's a huge distance. So actually unitaries are going to bring that space a lot smaller. So the creation of unitaries is actually about bringing it closer to home, not losing that closeness, as some people are arguing. There's also this I also found there's also, and a few councillors have mentioned, there's always this never-ending issue of ping-pong, that I call it ping-pong. You get a case and, yes, it's passed from post to post, from county to district, and you can hold on to those for months, years sometimes, where no one's taking full responsibility or accountability for a decision made. And quite often that's because it's tied up in loads of red tape and not necessarily just because somebody, that council or district don't want to do it. They're just following due diligence and, so that unitaries will get rid of all of that. And there's been a few cases, Councillor Hazelton here, we had a little patch of land up in London Road Estate. Half of the land was owned by KCC, half of the land was owned by CCC, different ground maintenance regimes, just like, it was just a total nightmare. And then, you know, after about a few years, managed to get a meeting with both sets of officers and we came up with a plan, but it was just, that's so unnecessary. So to me, I'm a cooperative member as well, and it was co-op party conference last weekend. And, you know, it was very upbeat, and actually the co-op party has been quite involved in the writing of this bill. And if you read the bill, it says English Devolution and Community Empowerment Bill. And apparently that is the first time in many, many, many years you've had the word community in the title of a bill and empowerment in the title of a bill. I mean, it hasn't been done for years and years and years. So this is an amazing time for bringing empowerment and community back into the hands of local people. So you really need to flip it on its side a little bit. How long have we got? Minutes. Right. Okay, so I just want to talk a bit about what option I'll be voting for tonight, which is 4D, because I feel that represents what the best outcomes for our residents, and that's really what it's all about today, the best outcomes, and listening to our residents as well. And we've seen through the consultation and talking to resident groups and blah, 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 people are really worried about their democratic representation and their identity and their accessibility. So 4D represents the identity that's already there. We've sort of talked about it already. As someone who knows a lot about Faversham and Mid-Kent, I can say for certain that once you pass through Faversham into bits of Mid-Kent, they're almost like two different places. So having that break would really be useful, I think, for those communities. Accessibility will make sure that people can get to their local office or have that relationship with their councillor better. And that representation, again, that smaller ratio of residents council, no, larger ratio will be better, I think. So just to sort of finish, both the three unitary option and the 4D option offer potential benefits to residents through simplified governance and clear accountability. The 3 option actually presents stronger, more reliable financial case, but it's the 4D includes distinct advantages in relation to a local identity, that democratic proximity, which we know is extremely important to our residents. So ultimately, we need to listen to our residents, and that's why I'll be voting for 4D tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I invite Councillor Pageant to speak, please?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. This evening we've been asked to vote on our preferred option for the structure of unitary authorities in Kent with the provisional modelling that we have. And based on that, I think 3A is the most financially viable. But I would just like to touch on what is not confirmed through any of these options is how parish councils will operate within the new structure, particularly without a current commitment to a community governance review. The consultation responses received on LGR, including input from parish councils, have strongly highlighted concerns about how areas without parish councils would be affected by reorganisation and the potential for democratic deficit, as well as the potential impact of increased workload on parish councillors as volunteers, where will there be greater support or remuneration to recognise the important role that parish councillors will continue to play, and how will this be funded? These are questions that are not currently answered. Regarding the disparities in representation between those parish councils and those without, which would be more profound without the role of district councils, it's important to consider where the experiences of residents could have a really tangible impact. For example, the old golf course development, which spans more than one district council ward currently, including my own of Herne and Broomfield. With unitary boundaries, we could see a situation where one part could have additional representation from a parish council and one part only the unitary. So would the boundaries of the parish councils change, or would they be expected to expand their responsibility further? I think these are really important considerations for how our residents will be represented going forward, and I think these have been reflected in the consultation. So tonight I support option 3A, but I think alongside that it's important to look at the role of parish councils going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I invite Councillor Brady to speak?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I mean, I've been embedded in the local government reorganisation and devolution conversation for about a year now. I've looked at this in great detail. Why? Because it is very, very important. Why is it important? Because we've got a broken service delivery model with the two-tier authority model, especially with a fragmented upper authority. The broken systems led to an East Kent, West Kent disparity and divide, coastal decline, declining road network. So something needs to change. Planning needs to be in the same room as highways. So does planning and public health. One of the main factors of ill health is the security and quality of somebody's home. Children and adult services need to be also being aligned with planning. Waste collection and waste disposal need to be in the same room. It's a no-brainer. So the Kent Upper Tier Authority, we've seen them sign large private sector contracts, which has resulted in price hiking without performance improvements. We see record levels of debt across Kent local authorities, and we see the services creaking under the strain because of the existing model. So a more locally focused service delivery is more responsive to local need. We also see a lack of accountability because residents are unclear who does what. And these service alignments will lead to better, more efficient delivery of services. That's why I've been embedded in it for a year. That's why it's incredibly important. I'm supporting a 4 model preferred option and 4D. So I favour 4D because it enables better service delivery, but it enables that because we include Faversham and Folkestone, and that's really important because that increases the funding base. Dover is more aligned with Folkestone and Faversham is more aligned with Canterbury. We've got Fair Funding 2.0 coming across the line, and that will benefit East Kent in a 4 model and 4D because of the benefits mentioned above. The funding formula will be determined within the upcoming settlement, and the funding formula will focus on benefits for areas with higher service pressures, and that's East Kent. I've built budgets at KCC, so I understand what is needed within those budgets. A 4 unitary is more respectful of community identity. The smaller the unitary, the greater community identity, but 4D also strengthens the funding base, as I've just mentioned. It helps deliver mayoral strategic authorities, which means more decision-making in Kent with substantially more resources and funding. So that is devolution. The majority of the services will be coming down from the upper tier authority, so that is devolution. 4D conforms with the population size, allowing for growth by giving space before the 500,000 population recommended ceiling. There's a better democratic deficit where councillors represent a manageable number of residents, which will result in better representation. As well as the above benefits, and this is important, there will be payback of the upfront delivery costs within 5 to 8 years. That's why 4D is the best. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Buckman?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Just briefly on unitaries, I do believe that it will bring more staff able to work together in a more unified workforce. And I think that the training and the expertise will be consistent and combined, and I think that will be certainly be a benefit to residents and officers alike working together and working for other people. I also believe with SEN, child and adult social care, the benefit of a joined up approach will help greatly. And the education of children, adult social care and SEN transport all under one authority, I think there will be definitely be quicker delivery, quicker assessments and more consistent decisions that will be made for the residents. And this, again, this will be a benefit to families and residents alike. think also the same will apply to highways and transport. You know, instead of two councils managing the same parts of the same network, a unitary authority would provide one strategy and one maintenance plan. And again, this will mean quicker and more effective responses to things like potholes, better repairs, and actually long-term strategic planning that would cover the whole of the unitary authority rather than bits and pieces here and there. In the unitary model 4D, I would assume there'll be more staff and officers that residents can contact, you know, dealing with these issues and concerns, and they'll all be done by this one authority. As I say, working to the same guidance, principles, and timelines. And I think this will make it easier for residents to get the resolution to the issues that are important to them without needing to go to lots of councillors, and for then the councillors to then go to the officers to find out that it was the wrong officer or the wrong authority that they've been speaking to. And it will make things a lot more straightforward for people, and it will be a lot more understandable for residents. I think, yeah, also under unitary, highways and transport, I've said that. Strategic planning and updated traffic modelling can be implemented and considered by the same authority in relation to planning and development. I think we sit so many times waiting for reports from a different authority, or you know, we'll have a development here and no, it's not going to have more cars, or it's not going to affect this or that. We can all make this same decision under the one roof. Bringing buildings, land and community facilities into a single portfolio will also allow us to reduce running costs and reinvest these savings. So not necessarily a massive return to start with, but it can be reinvested in a sensible way and that we all understand. And I also believe that 4D is the most manageably effective and it has the most commonality between areas, and we can just strive for better for all the residents. I haven't seen anywhere that parish and town councils will be put to one side, but I feel that they will be able to, I would hope that they could then focus on like proper real local priorities and get local maintenance, neighbourhood planning without having to navigate the two tiers of governance. Obviously, this hasn't been decided. I am concerned, but you know, with the right training that parish councillors may receive in the future, and elections, and they can succeed and move forward. And say in terms of service provision, I believe that the numbers of finance works best for 4D, as well as the numbers themselves, and as other councillors have touched on. And I just want to touch on one last thing. I think it's also, we all remember that naughty elephants squirt water. So geographically, I think north-east, south-west is a very easy way for people to visualise and understand. So I do believe that unitary 4D points the best way forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Forrester, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I don't know quite how I follow that, naughty elephants squirt water. So as a new councillor, I'm conscious that we've spent a lot of time discussing this, as Councillor Heave has mentioned. And I'm also really aware that over the last 9 months, the division between district and county council has frustrated me far more than it ever did as a resident. But I know that frustration is echoed by my residents. And this is our chance to make this system simpler and more accessible to our residents by letting them know who their councillor is, there won't be two tiers, and what council to speak to about potholes, fly tipping, or elephants squirting water, if that happens to be the case. But I'm also really in favour of this devolution because I've had professional experience in my day job in a devolved mayoral authority, strategic mayoral authority, and I've seen the massive benefits possible under that system. If we want to improve our residents' lives on a macro scale, and I really hope everyone here in this room does, this can be the way to do it. And I don't want us to miss that chance. So I have to disagree with Councillor Heaver's comments that the public aren't interested in this, so we shouldn't be talking about it. Actually, there's often a difference between what the public are interested in and what's in the public interest, as you probably saw on the front page of the Daily Mail today, yesterday, etc. We want to spend time and resources considering this properly because it is in the public interest, not just today, but in the long term. And I started my journey thinking about this in favour of 3A, but I've moved from that model because it's closest to the status quo in many ways of how it ties up with current provision. But that current provision doesn't work well enough for my residents, and that's why I can't endorse it. I think we should think bigger and try and do better for our residents than accepting how things are. And 4B, as many people have said, exaggerates the east-west split and embeds that split in favour of our western neighbours. So I heard Councillor Jupp speak at the beginning, and I agree with her. This is about more than money. It's about our culture, our past culture and past ties, but more importantly, our future. What those ties can and will look like in the future with the huge growth in East Kent that many have talked about. Who our residents see themselves as, where they see themselves working, learning and living, and what they want that to look like in the future. And for all those reasons, I've moved to and I will support 4D. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Prentice.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. City, countryside and coastline, what a great recipe for a new unitary authority. Our new council will be a perfectly formed district that has all the benefits of a historic city, stunning beaches, idyllic rural areas. The option I'll be voting for is one that allows the services that all of our residents rely on to be delivered effectively and at a sensible scale that doesn't place an excessive burden on the taxpayer nor destroys links between local communities and the familiar ties that bind us. This option also makes a lot of sense strategically and is one that maps onto existing networks, whether they are the links between existing local authorities or the physical infrastructure itself. We will hug tight our closest neighbours in East Kent, whom we already work with extremely well, and will continue to do so in the future. And I fully support this government's enthusiastic embrace of local government reforms, well overdue. It makes no sense that many of the most important decisions about our district are made so far away, an hour up the road in Maidstone. In a democratic institution that, with the exception of several of our colleagues in this chamber, has no interest in East Kent. That's the democratic deficit. I think that every member in this chamber can agree that the standard of governance in County Hall has fallen far short of what ordinary people in East Kent deserve and need. It's time for a change. As I've said, it's well overdue, and something on this scale should have happened back in the 70s. It's an exciting future for local government, and one that with this unitary authority allows us to deliver more and better services while retaining a strong sense of local identity. And as a few other people have referred to, looking forward just a few years from now, we fully expect and want a mayoral strategic authority to provide some of those better services, upskilling our workforce, a fairer deal for all young people, taking back control of our buses, holding planning powers that will deliver the homes and infrastructure that we need to thrive, to name just a few items, and not least a seat at the top table with the other regional mayors. I know that the mayoral decision has yet to be made, but look at local government reorganisation as a stepping stone towards that. So this is by no means the conclusion of that development of our local democracy. It's the start of a journey. And a 4 unitary model allows us to thrive, it enables us to grow. And I'll be voting for option 4D. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Turnbull.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I've been struggling with this whole process really, because I'm not quite sure to what purpose I'm going to be voting on anything, because it's not entirely clear that whatever we say will be adopted anyway. We've seen in other authorities that the Secretary of State has not gone for a preferred model. So there's lots of sort of issues around this, which is why I wasn't sure whether I was going to speak. And but I mean, bringing up the, I mean, we can all agree that rationalisation of services it's a no-brainer. Yes, it would be much more sensible if the people collecting the waste are dealing with the waste, all those sorts of arguments that we've heard several times, and I think that they are obvious, and I think that residents would definitely welcome those. I mean, I've got so many sort of issues and concerns. I've been looking at, say, this model 4D, and not that that's, I'm taking that as an example. There are disparities in the size of the different unitaries. There's 6,000 North Kent, there's 374,000 West Kent, and then the other two are sort of similar in between. But there are so many imponderables. I don't really, and I wasn't ever quite sure what I was going to say, but another issue is we don't know how this mayoral system is going to work. We haven't got any information on that. I feel like we're operating in a vacuum. And I do have grave concerns about the unparished areas in this district, and I know that as other people have raised, and there isn't any commitment in any of these models to look at that. So there are so many things I'm concerned about that I'm really struggling to know how to vote on this. Thanks.
Councillor Mackenzie.
Okay, thank you, Lord Mayor. I asked around, as I'm sure we all did, with our residents and the organisations we work with locally. There were two main concerns that came up, as I'm sure others came across these as well, and that was maintaining truly local representation and delivering services more efficiently in our communities. So those priorities are how I've approached my thinking on this process, and I do think that option 4D strikes the best balance, and that is what I'll be supporting this evening. On the point of local representation, so just for an example, the current elected to councillor ratio in Surrey is 1 to 3,135, which would rise to 1 to 4,375 in the proposed plans for 4D. I don't think that's an unrealistic increase. I don't think it would overload councillors. I think a meaningful connection between councillor and resident would still be retained. I also think geographically, the major hubs, I had a little look on Google Maps, seeing how far each place is how far each place is away from each other. And most of them are roughly 15 to 30 minutes away from each other. And they're all very well connected by motorways and transport links. And people already regularly use all these routes for work and study and shopping anyway. On service delivery, so this is obviously the most important thing. And, when we're elected to our roles, this is what we come in to do, to deliver services. And it's often said that the residents, they don't care about the politics or the bureaucracy. What they do care about is who's going to collect their bins, who's going to make sure their council houses are kept in good shape, who's going to fill their potholes. That's what matters. And that is very much in the public interest, even if the public are not interested in topics like this. So what we're doing tonight is for them, and it is very important that we ensure they get the most efficient service delivery. So I think the most important thing is that 4D would support the development of a Kent and Medway combined authority, so that we can coordinate long-term planning on housing, skills and transport. And when the government is opening the doors to devolved bus services with the Better Buses Bill and public control of our buses, there's a hugely lucrative opportunity here. And having a mayor would help us to drive investment into our region. Also, being able to collect and redistribute income and plan services on a much larger area, large enough to be more effective, but not so large as to remove it from local communities, would be a game changer in my view. So I will be supporting 4D this evening because I believe it keeps representation local enough to be meaningful, but still large enough to allow joined up thinking and strategic planning. And that's what my residents want. So that's what I'm supporting.
Councillor Heselton.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. So I'm going to vote for option 4D, but I'm not going to go through all the reasons because people have already kind of talked about that. I just wanted to say something about the staff in Canterbury City Council, and I want to thank the Joint Chief Executives for all the work that they've put into that. so far. There have been, you know, officers of all, you know, levels and different roles have been involved, you know, at different stages. But I've been really impressed at the way our Joint Chief Executives have sought to keep staff informed by answering questions. And I'm particularly sensitive to that because, you know, in my day job before I retired, I worked for local government. And we do get used as local government officers to being marched up a hill and then back down again. And that I would quite often as a manager have to go to teams of staff and say, oh, guess what, team, today we're wearing green sweatshirts, you know, and somebody would say, well, why is that? And I'm saying, I don't know, put your green sweatshirt on and I'll go and find out, you know. So I do have a lot of sympathy of the disruption and uncertainty that any form of reorganisation can bring. I'm a complete fan of unitaries. I'm completely convinced of the benefits of that. But what I am really mindful of is what our City Council are currently doing. So they are putting a lot of time and energy into this, but part of that time and energy is not about diverting just from delivery of our day-to-day services. It's about keeping staff informed, about giving them training opportunities, about best equipping them so that they can, you know, they can deliver. Alan at the beginning said that, you know, our staff are our greatest asset, and that's absolutely right. And so it's really important that whatever we vote for tonight and whatever comes down from the Secretary of State, and we will work with whatever model that comes with, we do need to make sure that we're really mindful of supporting our staff and being grateful for them continuing with their day job. I'm also really quite excited. I know it's not the sort of macro political thing, but just thinking about my portfolio of housing, that whichever housing authorities, you know, existing, we end up working with, we can take examples of stuff that we do, we can learn from others, we can look at where our commonalities are, we can plan more strategically, and I'm really looking forward to being part, even though it will be very early on in that journey between decision making of where our unitary will be and vesting day, the journey that we need to be taking our council on towards that new reality. So I just wanted to put that on record. Thank you.
Thank you. Could I invite, if there's no more, okay, Councillor Flanagan.
Indeed. Thank you. Yes. Yeah. Might as well mention it as the late James Flanagan. I'll come late to this debate. So, thank you, Councillor Smith. I remember that. Councillor Dan Smith. Yes. So I came here tonight openly not knowing which one to support between options 3A or 4D. I thought I'd just sit here and listen to the debate and listen to what fellow councillors and colleagues have to say. I think in all of this and everything I've heard, and a number of councillors have mentioned this already, for me, the big standout item, yes, the services, yes, the resources, yes, the finances are all incredibly important, but for me, it's how we maintain democratic representation. We are all living in a time where trust is at a premium in the democratic process. And we need to make sure that that is right at the top of the list with whatever decision we make tonight. My concern with a large, geographically sized model for unitary authority is that you put that at risk. The wider and larger a geographic size, the less possibility there is that one member at one end of it will know the intricacies and the ins and outs and the issues at the other end. And so I fear that some of these options here tonight leave that open, and therefore also leave open the possibility that in a three model approach for a unitary authority, you lose some of that democratic accountability. I do in this context actually understand the discussion that some members have made tonight about the request for community governance reviews. This is labelled as devolution, but it's not devolution for those areas that are left with just one tier of government. And I think we just need to bear that in mind, perhaps consider that in a little bit more detail. Nonetheless, we are where we are. I've heard some people say I'm a big fan of unitaries. I can't say I'm in the Premier League for a big fan of unitaries, but I understand the move towards them and that this is in motion. But we need to make sure that we press for the best model that maximises that democratic accountability. And I think on balance, that model for me is option 4D. It states also in the paper tonight that together these features make option 4D the most balanced, future-ready model for Kent and Medway, delivering scale without sacrificing identity. The identity is important, the scale is important, the future-ready model for Kent and Medway is an important issue as well. But I think, and I hope that within that, if 4D is supported, that also within that for the future-ready model is maintaining democratic accountability for the people that we represent and serve.
Thank you very much. Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I couldn't let James have the last word. I'm afraid I can't support any of these options, and that mainly is because of that local representation is going to be lost, and particularly in my ward, West Bay, which is unparished, they'll have no representation there locally at all. I don't think it's fair to say our system is broken as it is. We've been doing this for 50 years, and there's some things we do reasonably well. Most of my casework is around housing, bins, usual stuff, which we do. They could be improved, but we do them okay. And I don't think any of this is going to be improved by having a unitary authority. As Councillor Paget said as well, we're going to have people next door to each other who've got different representations, and that's not democracy. And I was elected to represent my people, and I don't think this is going to improve things for them at all. Sorry, so I can't support any of the options, but I do recognise all the hard work that went into preparing this, and I appreciate that our hands are tied. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? If not, I'm going to invite Alex Ricketts to speak.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thanks everybody. I almost wish I'd spoken first because everything I was going to say has already been said. So I've had to quickly sketch out an entirely new 5-minute speech, and you'll be disappointed. Disappointed to find out that I have managed to do that. It's been really nice to hear the views tonight, and I think, again, a credit to this chamber while it still exists. And welcome, Peter, and it's a shame that your first vote will be to vote on what's going to replace the chamber you've just been elected to. But I think it's really nice to hear the case made positively amongst some of these choices, because I think that this has been a long and drawn out process, and those of us who are heavily engaged in it, perhaps it's one for the geeks, and it's very difficult to sometimes explain to the general public what's going on. However, it is incredibly important. And hearing those positive cases, I am going to break with that and have a small moan, because that is my right. What I feel through this process is that this is something still that's being done to our residents rather than done with them. And we have tried through this to gain a few pieces of insight from people and talk to people, as I'm sure everybody has, and there's been some interesting views. But I think what's been missed in that is not necessarily the numbers in a consultation. It's that opportunity to bring people along with what the new authorities will look like, to give them a sense of ownership. And this has been really interesting when I've spoken to people about it and they've looked at the options. Some people feel really passionately about the different models. We want to be with them, particularly with 4D, the idea of Canterbury and Faversham being together. That evokes a lot of passion in people. I think if people had had more chance to be involved in the creation of that, that's something that would come through with a sense of pride and ownership from the general public, which would do, as Councillor Flanagan says, a lot to restore that trust and pride in people's local institutions and that connection with their elected politicians, which is desperately lacking in some areas. And that brings me on to my second and final moan, which is that this is local government reorganisation, and and I think to a certain extent our system is broken, but this doesn't fix the broken bit of our system, which is the most broken, which is the lack of representation. And you're going to guess what's coming from the Lib Dem is it doesn't fix electoral reform. It doesn't bring any level of electoral reform. The previous government removed that element with electing mayors. So we now have directly elected, incredibly powerful mayors elected on 33% of the vote from huge geographical areas. I hope that will be addressed as part of this goes on. I'm not a huge fan of directly elected mayors as they currently stand. I don't think that's a devolution of power. I think it's a centralisation of power to a local area, and I think central government feels that this Council of the Regions is a much easier thing to control than the troublesome priests of district councils that tend to have their own ideas about how their local area should be run. I think that the government perhaps thinks it's going to get a lot of Andy Burnhams, but it might end up with a lot of Ben Houchins and even worse, a lot of Andrea Jenkins. I thought you might not like that, Councillor Carney. All right, it might end up with a lot of Andrea Jenkins. I think we can all agree that that's a terrible idea. And I'm glad that our own Andrea Jenkins 1A model was dismissed with the amount of debate it deserved earlier on in the proceedings. So to stop that, and I think that we do have this, and I would like to thank the officers, and I would also like to thank Alan through this process, because actually this was something that was decided by leaders. It could have been done behind closed doors in not so much smoke, maybe vape-filled rooms these days. I don't know. I don't know how it works. I'm not allowed in them. But Alan's been really open throughout this whole process with us and with the rest of the council. I think he's shared with the group leaders as well. And I don't think that's the experience of councillors everywhere across Kent through this process. So thank you to Alan, and thank you to the officers through this as well. Because we understand it's your livelihoods we're talking about when we pontificate. So we're left with a very simple choice, and for me, it is between 3A and 4D, and it's a little bit heart and head for me between those two. I think that absolutely I understand. I mean, we did get some views where a couple of people said, could we reflood the Wantsum and carve Thanet off again? And actually, somebody from Thanet wanted that to happen. I think they were quite keen on the idea, so I'm not just having a pop. But for me, I think 4D is the heart option. I think I can see that commonality, but 3A, and this is a decider being involved with the NHS as I have been over the last few years, I want my local authority to have the oversight of the healthcare provision in the area. I think a lot of people from this area go to William Harvey, and I would like my local authority to have that oversight and scrutiny of the hospital where my family gets their healthcare. I also think that a local authority with Ashford in it, we have road, we have rail, we have sea. You know, it's a very viable model. And I'm going to stop. Thank you, Lord Mayor. So I think I will be going for 3A. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I invite the leader to sum up and move to the first vote, can I ask the Joint Chief Executive to remind councillors of the procedure we're about to follow?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Just to remind you, the proposal that you now take a vote on is the remaining options in report 3A, 4B and 4D. If the first option is carried, there will be no further debate, and option 3A as the first vote will be recommended option to Cabinet. A vote against is support for an alternative option listed in the report or no option at all. An abstention would show that you have no preference for that option being voted on. Can I also remind you that a majority means more than half of those who vote. It does not include abstentions. So if there are 10 people in the chamber voting and 2 abstentions, that would leave 8 votes to count, so 5 would be a majority. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Can I invite the leader to sum up?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Firstly, I won't be spending a huge amount of time because I think the debate has been really good tonight. I appreciate everybody that spoke tonight, everyone that's been for or against the options that are on the table before us. It's useful to know that, and I thank you all for doing that. I would actually mention that the Labour government has actually decided to change the voting rules for Lord Mayors, actually, and it's going to be by that proportional representation. No, it's going to be by 1, 2, and 3 options. So The transferable vote. That's the word. Thank you, transferable vote. So something we use in the Labour Party, and I really should have known what that was called. Right, sorry. Okay. So, but that we're good. So thanks to all of you for that. I've taken away a lot of things from that debate, and I think then I didn't take away any surprises. But they were useful to have, and I understand the ones about representation and the parish councils and what have you. I think I would just mention that all of us here today are taking a vote on a principle, and I think I actually have a vision how I see the future, and most of the people that spoke tonight have had the vision in their head how they see a unitary authority improving things. When Rachel spoke earlier, she saw that improvement in the unitary authority clear as clear. It's just the journey was the 3 model. Other people in the chamber have spoke about the 4D model, but they had that vision of what they wanted the unitary authority to come up with. And I've been heartened by that, because to me, that's the real benefit of doing unitary reorganisation. So in the end, the Secretary of State will decide what we're going to do. But that's not what's not up for debate, is that we will be a unitary authority. So the argument is, I don't know any more than anybody else how it's actually going to be, but I have a vision, and providing my vote tonight brings that vision closer and focuses my attention on what I can do to make that vision a reality, I'm happy to vote for that. I don't want to be told what to do. I want to be part of what I'm doing. And that I found was quite disappointing tonight, that some people couldn't see the vision or want to be part of the journey. They want to be told how it is before they even start the journey. So this is a journey to me. So when we vote tonight, we're going to express our opinion, the one that we think is the best way of reaching that vision that we have for a unitary authority that makes the lives of our residents so much better. So vote as you wish in a moment or two, but please do. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Can I ask the Democratic Services officers to read out the first proposal, please?
Okay, the first proposal is a vote for option 3A. A vote for is to support the option. A vote against is to reject the option. If you abstain, you are saying you have no preference. And hopefully the system is working. You can just change. Just change it.
I know, I did that. Yeah. Life flashed before my eyes.
And that's 6 for, 25 noes and 1 abstention.
Thank you. That vote is lost. Can I therefore invite the Democratic Service Officer to read out the next proposal, please?
Sorry, the next proposal is for option 4B. Again, a vote for is to support the option, against to reject, and a vote to abstain is no preference. And that's no yeses, 31 noes and 1 abstention.
Thank you. That vote is lost. Can I invite Democratic Service Officer to read out the final proposal, please?
Okay, and this is for option 4D. Again, a vote for is to support the option, against to reject, and a vote to abstain is no preference. And we have 24 for, 8 against, and no abstentions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Option 4D has been carried. Well done, everyone. All right. Council has considered information relating to the options for local government reorganisation in Kent and Medway and recommends to the Cabinet that option 4D is the preferred option for a new East Kent Unitary Authority that incorporates the existing Canterbury City Council district for the reasons set out in this debate. Cabinet is asked to note the recommendation of Council when making its decision. There is no other urgent business. Thank you all for coming. This meeting of full council is now closed. Thank you very much.